Road Podcast, telling the stories of the South Texas racers from the past and present.
Hello, my name is James Parks, and welcome to the Thunder Road Podcast. We are filming here at the Top Hat Signs and Design Studio. I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Proline Fabrication, 112 Bodies, S&S Monuments, and of course, Top Hat Signs and Designs. If you or anyone you know is interested in advertising on our show, please see the email listed below. And in this episode, we have the infamous Little G, Gilbert Perez III. We're going to talk about his go-kart racing, his big car racing, and everything in between. So we're here with the infamous Gilbert Perez III. Gilbert's going to tell us a little bit about his racing. Gilbert, as far as I know, started off in go-karts and kind of worked his way to big cars, did some different things like that. So with that being said, let's bring in Gilbert.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Gilbert's a little nervous today. That's all right. We're gonna walk him through this deal. This Thunder Road Podcast apparently makes some folks nervous, but he's going to do just fine. So Gilbert, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about your racing and your family involvement in the racing.
Well, I'm a first-generation racer. I started when I was 6 years old. My sister started way before me, or about 2 or 3 years before me. And I used to be terrified of those go-karts, but I remember one time my cousin got in there, and I didn't like that, so I got in there, and I had to try it out, and ever since then, I've been hooked.
Had to get in there and show them how it's done. So did you kick your sister out of the go-kart too, or what happened there?
No, how it worked is a lot of the go-karts me and my sister had when we were younger, my dad had built them from the ground up, and her very, very first go-kart got handed down to me, and I remember my dad had built one for me. And I remember I went to go try it out, made about 2 laps, and I pulled off to the side of the track and told myself, no, this ain't for me. I'm going way too fast.
Was that go-kart pink as well?
No, it wasn't pink. It was black, I think.
So your dad, you mentioned earlier.
But that's another reason why a lot of my cars are pink, because they're all hand-me-downs from my sister.
That's all right. So you mentioned your dad earlier. You said your dad built you those go-karts and stuff. Was your dad involved in racing at all before the go-kart situation?
Way before he had me and my sister. He was involved in some drag racing that he did. He had a Ford Falcon. I can't remember the year, but I remember it was yellow. That's cool. All I really remember.
So he did some drag racing, and then he had some kids, and probably had to change his itinerary a little bit.
I guess so.
And there you are with some go-karts. So your sister Amelia, she raced go-karts, and then you ended up taking over from there. And then did she continue to race once you took over?
Yeah, she should continue to race. Like I said, that go-kart my dad had built for me ended up going to her. And I didn't race for about a year. And then when my cousin, we were at a practice, Who is your cousin? My cousin Tito. He doesn't race, but I remember one day we were it was like on a weekday after the races at South Texas Speedway. And it was Michael Varial, I remember, my sister, and my cousins. It was about 3 of them, but my older cousin, he's about a year younger than me. I remember he went out there. And my dad had always tried to get me to get in the go-kart, but every time I'd go in there and make race car noises with it, but as soon as he went to go start that motor, I was
game over.
Out of there, yeah. Well, my cousin decided to do it, and he made 2 laps, and then we tried to flag him down to stop, but he was so nervous, and he was fogging up the helmet so much, it took about 10 laps just to get him to stop. We were over there flagging him down, and I was mad. I was like, nope, get him out of there. I need to get in there.
Get him out of my ride.
And ever since then, it's been hammered down.
That's awesome. So looking at our notes here, looks like you started at age 6. Obviously, you did some go-kart stuff. I'm sure you did local go-karting, South Texas Speedway, which is now the Race Ranch. I'm going to assume was Edna racing go-karts back then too?
No. When I first started, the tracks I remember racing at was Shady Oak Speedway, South Texas Speedway, CW Speedway, and a little bit of Rio Grande. I don't remember racing at Rio Grande too much, but I remember racing there a couple times before it closed down.
You must have remembered 2009 pretty well, though, because that was your first feature win.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, what you remember of that. Or if you don't remember anything, make it up, because no one else was. We weren't there.
I remember that night very vividly. It was Halloween Havoc night, and that was always my favorite race of the year at Shady Oak Speedway. I mean, you go, and they had all the cars on the front stretch. You fill your helmet up with candy. And I remember my dad had just built me a new car. It was fairly new. And I started pole the feature, or the heat race, won it. Started pole the feature and won it. And I remember the blue ribbon. I still have it hanging up on my desk.
It's the little things, man.
The blue ribbon, my very first win, Halloween Havoc.
That's cool. So how old were you when you did that, roughly?
I started when I was 6, and I was about a year or two after, so I'd say 7 or 8 years old.
All right, so you kind of hung around the Predator style go-karts for a little while.
Yeah.
You did that, and then you kind of progressed into some little wilder animals there.
Yeah,
What did you end up rolling into?
Well, I remember racing the Predator. Well, they weren't Predators back then. They were like I don't know if they're Briggs and Stratton, but they were blue motors.
The
we
clone
would call them. Yeah,
knockoff,
they're
yep.
clones. And I remember racing those, and I remember my dad he bought me an outlaw kart. That's the first kart that I've ever raced, and the only other kart I've had that was not built by my dad. Every other kart I've raced and my sister's race was all built by my dad. And at first he hopped up a clone motor on there, and I raced that for about 2 or 3 races, and then I progressed to a 125, and those 125 days are some of my funnest days racing, and that class has taught me a lot.
Where did you run the 125 stuff at?
125, we ran it a lot here at South Texas Race Ranch, but there wasn't very many of us, but I did travel a lot and raced in Cam Cartway, Texoma Speedway, and Wichita. I've raced the MWRS Winter Series, which it wasn't the same every year. I ran it for about 3 years, and the first one was always in Rome, Texas, at the Circle T Ranch Arena. They're all indoors, indoor karting events. And then there was Duncan. That was Graham, Texas. That was a Santa shootout. And then there was 2 or 3 in Oklahoma. I can't remember where in Oklahoma. I remember one was like Duncan, Oklahoma, and Ardmore, Oklahoma.
So when you're traveling, you were traveling doing the 125 stuff, 250s and 500s all at the same time, or you had different carts, or what was the setup on that deal? Or was it just different times?
For about a year and a half, I was mainly in the 125s, and then I finally moved up to a 250. So
was it a big transition?
The 125s and 250s are roughly the same. The 125s don't have as much torque as those 250s, but they go about the same amount of speed. But those 250s have so much grunt compared to the 125s. But my sister had ended up getting an outlaw kart because she was still racing outlaw karts and go-karts and E-mods here and there. But she had got an outlaw kart, but one time I ended up talking my dad into letting me put a 250 on there, and I raced both classes, but I usually only stayed with the 125 and the 250, and every once in a while I'd race a 500.
So what did you run at the Stars event here? You ran
the Stars event. That was a 500.
500. That was the black and white car,
yes,
right?
Yes, the 333.
Yep. All right. So you did the MWRS Winter Series. We talked about that deal. You finished second in points there in the Outlaw division, the 125 division, and then in 2016, what did you do at Cam Cartway?
2016 at Cam Cartway. That night I was running a 125. My 125, and my sister was supposed to race, but we had raced the night before in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and the pipe would run right next to her seat, and it got the seat real hot. She got burned pretty bad. So I ended up running the kart that night, the 250 that night too, but I didn't do any good in the 250, but I ended up winning the 125. That was probably one of my biggest wins in outlaw karts.
That's cool. Local racer, you're doing that deal. People don't understand the struggle and the amount of time and money it takes to do that traveling stuff, whether it's a go-kart or big car. The sacrifice from the family, obviously the sacrifice from your dad. I'm a dad with kids racing go-karts. I know exactly where that's coming from, but a lot of folks don't realize that. So what I know of you and your family is your family has always been there. Your mom is one of the loudest cheers in the stands, but when I was a kid, my mom was too. So don't feel bad. Your sister is always there cheering you on. And I don't know that I've ever seen you at the racetrack without your dad. No. It may have happened. I just didn't see it, but your dad is pretty much always there, and that's a good deal. So obviously we know that you ran some big cars, but you didn't just walk away from the go-kart stuff. You kind of put the go-kart stuff to the side. Yeah. Got your feet wet doing some big car stuff. But there was a little problem. That was your sister's E-mod.
Yes.
So how did that transition happen?
You see, okay, so we were running the clone karts for a while, and then my sister got an E-mod. I can't remember what year it was, but
that car's been around a long time.
Yes, that car, when we got it, we pulled it out of the weeds. I have pictures and videos I'll send to you to show you, but we pulled it out of the weeds. We got it from Adan Alhambria, Isaiah Garcia's grandpa, and we got it for a whopping $1.
Well,
yeah, and we took it home.
Deals are made, buddy. Deals are made.
I remember helping my dad strip it all down, get it all ready for sandblast and paint. And I remember he sent it off to paint. We got it back. I remember getting it back on the trailer, and we didn't have a way to unload it, so we had to put all the suspension on the trailer. And I remember I was so young, I was so scared to hold the wrench while he had the impact because I thought it was going to break my arm off. But yeah, I remember putting that car together from the ground up. Did it ever break your arm
off? No.
No. He always, just hold it.
Are you over that yet, or is this still a fear?
I work on them. I work on vehicles every day, so I think I'm good over it.
All right, I'm going to have Lawrence put a camera on you and make sure you're still not scared of tools. Finger. Yeah. All right, so we got the car, put it together in the trailer, and then, but whose car is it now?
Then it was my sister's, and I was still racing the 6.5 horsepower go-karts, and she raced those for about 2 or 3 years, and then we started getting into the shifter carts or the outlaw carts. And she kind of wanted to lean more towards, hey, those look fun. I want to try those. So we kind of put the E-Mod on the back burner for a little bit. And my dad had bought her a outlaw cart as well. And and then one day we were racing outlaw carts. So we kind of stopped traveling because that, you know how it is. It gets expensive. And
it's really expensive.
The nearest track that races them locally was in, I think, Cam Cartway, and that's 6 or 7 hours away.
Yeah.
So one day I decided to start working on the E-Mod, and my dad said, okay, well, if you want to race it, you got to work on it. So we pulled it out of the weeds in the back.
That's not a bad work ethic to have, though. Yeah. Honestly, it's not. If you're going to drive the car, you got to work on it. It helps you understand. Actually, it teaches you a lot of respect for the car.
Yeah, definitely. My dad taught me that at a young age. He always taught me, if you tear it up, you're going to fix it. We pulled it out of the weeds. I remember we put a new body on it and raced it. I remember I was that was when the E-Mods were still on those hard, I forgot what they were. American
Southwest
Speed. Southwest Speed.
It was as hard as this tile.
Yeah, I mean, you get they're like, I call them hockey pucks because they're real hard and they'll last you about a season as long as you don't pop one. And I remember I was a little wild at first. I did about 2 races. I remember when I first got out there, the deal was I was supposed to do the heat races and my sister was supposed to do the features. But the first time I went out there, it never worked. I went out there, did the hot laps and the heat race, and I told her that I got to do the feature. And I was a little wild at first, but
your sister, she was just like, okay, you can drive it, or did y'all have to wrestle, or
we were supposed to share it, but you know how you can obviously tell how that went. But we kind of stayed racing I balanced the 2 outlaw carts and the E-Mod for about a year and a half until I finally put the outlaw carts away and put my main focus on the E-Mod.
I got you. So tell us some of your accomplishments in the E-Mod. Tell us some of the highs and lows of the E-Mod open wheel division. Basically, folks, what an E-Mod is, if you don't know, is really kind of a toned down sport mod on a different tire, a little less motor, but still just as much a handful.
Yeah. Well, the E-Mod, so I raced it about 2 races, and then I put it. I don't remember racing it until I remember they had them at where they had them the tops off and everything. Mm-hmm. And then when I started racing it again, they made us put the roofs back on. Yeah, and if you've been around South Texas Speedway for a while, you remember the OG Olaf car that I had, and everybody loved that car. And I remember
it was a pink frame.
Yeah, pink frame.
It had Olaf on the wrap.
Yeah, I remember my first race back in the Olaf car, I call it. I was leading I won my heat race. I was leading the feature, and then me and my dad had to change the intake gasket. And you know how you're supposed to silicone the back? Well, we put that little cork gasket and ended up blowing it out and getting oil everywhere. And I ended up spinning out. But about 3rd race back, I redeemed myself and got my first win. And I call it my 3rd start, but it probably was my 5th.
Well, we'll tell everybody
it was my full-time racing because I was kind of like the deal was I'll do the heat races, my sister would do the features.
That's cool. So we'll technically say it was your 3rd full start at South Texas Speedway. You got to win. It sounds better.
Yeah.
I like it. We'll go with that. All right, so then what happened from there? That was basically 2017.
Yeah, 2017.
2019, 2020. What happened in those years?
In 2018, I remember I think I got 2nd in the points to Eric
Ramos?
No, Eric Rucci.
Oh, Rahi.
Rahi,
yeah.
I got 2nd in the points that year. I did get about 2 or 3 wins, but I was my real learning year. I remember one time that year, I remember taking my car out to Lawrence's, and I had a couple things wrong with it. Me and my dad, as a first generation racer, it's kind of me and my dad. We got a lot to learn. You know what I mean? We don't people out there. Their grandpas, their dads race. They get to learn from them. When me and my dad, when we started, we kind of just here you go.
Right.
Get after it.
You had to kind of take your own notes and go from there.
Yeah. So I remember we took it out there to the Lawrence's track, and I had like a bent ball joint or some in the front end. The front end was all out of whack. Lawrence comes up to me. He's looking at my car. He says, "Hey, Gilbert, how about you take this car over to my shop and I'll help you get everything straight and set up." And then after that, that's when I learned my wheels started ticking on the setup game, and I just started working from there. But Lawrence Meklinchek has helped me a lot and mentored me a lot through my racing career.
That's good. In racing, it takes that. It takes people that are willing to help, people that are willing to give advice and pass on some of their knowledge. So that's really great that Lawrence was able to do that. So it looks like in 2020, you ended up winning the championship at South Texas Speedway in the E-Mod.
Yes, in 2020, that was probably one of my best seasons in the E-Mod. I think I had ended up getting about 8 or 9 wins that season, and I think that year it was me and JD, and if it wasn't me winning, it was him winning, and we would go back and forth every weekend.
But y'all were buddies at the same time.
Yeah, we were buddies.
You guys would rib each other. Y'all would lay on each other a little bit. Neither one of y'all gave each other an inch, but actually, you put on a good show.
I think the one race either me or him didn't win. I think we took each other out racing for the lead, and Brianna Witchy had won.
There you go. That's one for Brianna right there. In 2022, what happened at I-37?
That was my first year ever running that track, so it was a real big learning curve because I still trying to figure out that track. But we ended up able to squeeze out a track championship that year. They had a shortened season for the E-Mod, but a championship is a championship, and
on paper it's all the same. Yeah. Hopefully it paid the same. I don't know. So let's talk about some rivalries and some nemesis. So maybe in the go-kart stuff, who is your biggest rivalry? It doesn't necessarily mean somebody you don't like, but who is one of your toughest competitors? Like when you put your helmet on, you're like, oh man, I got to be on point because I have to outrun this guy.
Oh, hands down, Jaden Edmond. That's my best buddy. We grew up racing. He went with me all those winter series. We traveled with each other, but we were all in the 6.5 horsepower days. So today we're still in the same class,
still competing,
and we were always neck and neck and everything.
But I think those type deals make you better because you want to outrun that guy, and whether you know it or not, he wants to outrun you. Yeah. So it makes it where you both have to work a little harder, which makes your program better. Yeah. So in the go-kart stuff, it was Jaden Edmond. But what about an E-Mod deal?
In the E-Mod, it has to be either between JD Legg and Nathan Titzman. Man, me and those two guys, we'd always battle it up front, and it was always a close race between them. But me and JD had a lot more races under our belt with each other.
JD's here, you just can't see him over the counter. By the way, he's sitting down over there.
But JD Legg and Nathan Titzman definitely.
Nathan will make you work.
Yeah,
Nathan will make you work.
That little crate motor chugging along on the bottom.
Don't give him an inch because he's going to make 2 inches out of it. Yeah. Next thing you know, he's going to be a straightaway ahead of you. So that's cool. So after the transition from the go-kart stuff, we did the regular Predator style, and then you did the Outlaw stuff, and then you did the E-Mod stuff, and then you got a phone call one day.
Yep, I got a phone.
Some old man walked in. Lawrence gave you a bunch of shit. Like, what happened?
Yeah, I remember one day Skip come to the shop over there at Ace Transmissions. He's like, I need a driver. And I kept telling him, I'm your guy. And one day he gave me the opportunity. He liked it.
Finally.
Yeah. It was about 2 years in the making because I remember I had my shot at the BD2, but I don't think I was. Honestly, it was probably a good thing because I don't think I was just quite ready yet. I still had a lot more maturing to do. And
Fair enough.
One year later, he asked me the spot open in the BD1. He told me that he wanted me to go out there and try it out. He liked what he saw, and
I think you went to a practice session.
Yeah, practice.
I think you went to a practice session, and I remember he called me and he said, "We have a driver."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, who is it?" Which I already knew, but I wanted him to say it because Lawrence had been working on Skip for quite a while.
Yeah.
So once he finally said Gilbert, and I was like, "All right, we're good." So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about the nervousness of it. Tell us about all those things because Skip doesn't have bad cars. They're all really nice pieces. So tell us a little bit of that transition.
I knew Skip. I seen that car. I remember he would bring it to the shop, and I was like, dang, this is a nice car. And then when he told me that I might have the opportunity to get to race it, I was beyond me. I was so excited. I went home, told my dad, hey, we're going to be practicing this weekend. And Skip has top-notch equipment, like some of the best and the best what you can put on there. And I was beyond me to be able to drive a car like that. And as long as I make my car owner happy and try to do good every weekend, that's all that matters.
So you went out there, you ran some practice sessions in the Sport Mod, in the dynamic car.
Yeah.
You ran some practice sessions. You ended up sealing the deal, and then you went to race. I guess the first night you didn't do bad.
No, the first night I started pole my heat race, and it was a 1-lane. I've always been a hammer down kind of guy. Dry tracks, I'm still trying to figure out.
Is that from the Outlaw?
Yeah, the Outlaw cars, you got to keep them on the pipe, as you say, and keep the RPMs up, and you got to drive them hard, and they have real soft tires. Forgive yourself. But those Sport Mods, I remember I started pole, and actually Ray over there was, I grew up watching Ray and traveling all over, and then he started on the outside pole of me. No, I think Marcus did that race, and I drove around Marcus, and I was like, well,
so who was more intimidating, Ray or Marcus?
Well, actually, I was like, when I went up there to look at my heat race, I see, God dang, I got Ray and Marcus, and those two guys.
Just stand on it.
Those two guys were the 1-2 until the last 3/4 of a lap at the big show.
We'll talk about that later.
that's a soft topic right now. Or I don't know if that's still a soft topic, but
Gilbert is like a starter. He keeps starting things, so
yeah, But the first thing I told myself, well, that's 1-2 for 3/4 of the big show that just a couple months ago in my heat race, and I drove around Marcus, and I seen Ray peeking me the whole time, and I knew pull off the track, right rear is gone, but I was like, hey, I'm starting pole the feature of my first Sport Mod race, and I managed to hang on and finish third just on my first start.
First night out, so you won your heat race with some big hammers behind you, breathing down your neck. I'm sure they didn't want to get outrun by you either, especially in your first night. So I'm sure those two guys were on the gas, as they say. Third for the feature, and then you came back the second night. You were a little more comfortable.
Yeah, second night I was a little more comfortable, but I think we ran into some problems that night. I can't remember what, but I remember the next night, same thing. Started on pole my heat race, won it. Started pole the feature and won. That was my first win, and I still remember every laugh of it. I remember I thought somebody was on my bumper the whole time. I remember coming off and asking my dad, how close were they? The first thing I asked him was, how close were they? And he said, dude,
you were
you
gone.
have nothing to worry about.
You were gone. I remember your mom came up to me and she said, little G, he was so nervous. He didn't feel like he belonged in the car. He didn't know if he could drive the car in the class, and you proved yourself that night. You proved that you had a spot that was your seat. So congratulations on that. Not many folks can go out there and be that competitive in the Sport Mod class, especially at the race ranch, because there's fast cars there.
Yes.
I think the guys that race here and at Edna and even at 37 can go anywhere in Texas and be competitive. So don't sell yourself short. Wins don't come easy. There's a lot of work that goes into that. There's a lot of time and effort between yourself and your dad. You guys maintaining that stuff. So don't sell yourself short. Wins are hard to come by.
Definitely.
So tell us a little bit about your Sport Mod stuff. So obviously you're still racing the Sport Mod. You're keeping Skip happy, I suppose. So you're still in the seat, and you haven't been booted yet. So you must be doing something right. I see the car regularly. You are taking care of it. I'm proud of you for that. But tell us a little bit about maybe your rivalry in that deal. When you put that helmet on, who's the guy that you have to beat in the Sport Mod division? Well,
it's got to be Marcus, because when last year we came 2 points from each other in the championship, he barely narrowed me out. A lot of people don't go for the championship, but I do. I mean,
But also Marcus works with you.
Yeah, that's the
or
thing.
Or you work with Marcus.
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends on what day.
We work with each other.
All right.
And we pester each other, I should say, all day. And, coming in the weekend, talking smack, like saying, oh, I'm going to beat you this weekend. Then when it came down to the championship, it got even more intense at the work.
Did it get really, really tense over at Ace Transmission during that
And
deal?
I remember I had it locked down, too. He started in the front. He got collected in the wreck, and he went to the back, and I knew as long as I finished right here, and I had it locked down, but I stepped on it and looped it, and he got in front of me, and that's when he took the lead. Then we got a bunch of rainouts at the end of the season, and I could never make those points back. So.
Yeah, I don't think you lost it by very many points.
No,
I think it was pretty
close.
close.
About 2 or 3 points.
No, we have some racers here that work for me, and throughout the years I've had racers work for me, so racing at the track, it always comes to work on Monday, and they're always ribbing each other, whether it's big cars or little cars or go-karts or whatever it is. Most of the time, whoever works here at Proline wants to finish ahead of the other guys so they don't have to, hear all the smack talk, and they can do the smack talking on Monday morning. So your rivalry in the Sport Mod class, we discussed that, and next thing you know, you get a phone call and says, hey, you're going to drive this little mini mod deal.
The mini mod deal was very unexpected. I remember Skip telling me he bought it, but Daniel was racing it. And then Daniel, I guess, gave it back to Skip. And then one day at the races, I was just supposed to race a sport mod. He shows up, hey, James is bringing the BD4. I want you to race it. Well, I ain't going to say no. I'll drive anything with 4 wheels and a steering wheel. So, yeah, those things are a blast. They might not look pretty quick, but when you're sitting in that seat with no power steering and going through those corners, feeling every little rut in the track, those things are a blast.
And one time you won 2 heat races.
Yeah, I won 2 heat races. Well, somebody told me to go with that one, so I went ahead with it, but it just gave me a little more practice. And, those 2 heat races, they weren't easy because you got to really manhandle those things.
No, there's no power steering in
track.
those cars. And I have a mini sprint myself, and my driver tells me all the time that it's hard to steer. But I drive a mini mod too, and I just figured that's how they were supposed to be, but apparently not. But no, Gilbert lined up, went out and ran the first heat, and then I guess ran the second heat, and they came over the radio like Gilbert won both heats, and I'm like, why? Why did he do that? Yeah,
and they didn't even tell me to get off. They just came over the radio once the first heat ended. Oh, by the way, BD4, you're in the second heat, and I was like, whoa, it's good to know that now.
Got out there and did it again. So tell us a little bit about your hobbies. I know you do some motocross stuff. What else does Gilbert do?
Recently, of course, motocross, but I haven't raced motocross in a little while. It's been so hot outside, it's hard to get out there. But what I have been doing is a bunch of fishing lately. I don't know what, I grew up fishing my whole life with my dad on his boat. And, we stopped for about 4 or 5 years to focus on racing. And his boat was just sitting there. And I was like, man, he done all that work to his boat when I was younger, or getting it all restored. And then we haven't used it in about 4 or 5 years. So I went to work on it, got it all fixed up, and that's shit. I've been going fishing every weekend before the races.
I saw on Facebook, or believe it was Facebook, you were working on the engine.
Yeah.
And then I think somebody was ribbing you about a boat mechanic and needing a tow. But as far as I know, you haven't been broke down in the ocean yet.
No, I've been broke down, but I've gotten back. So.
Good deal.
And I know how it is because I've been on a boat one time where we're in the middle of it's over there by Bird Island. It's like the Intercoastal Channel. We got stranded out there and had to get towed back in. It's not fun.
No, I once broke down in a borrowed boat in Mathis Lake, and I had to get us to shore by throwing the anchor. No good.
Pulling it back in?
Yeah, no good. It was a good time until the motor stopped, and then it was no good after that.
When the motor stops and you're in the middle of the water, it's like, what do I do now?
So, you've raced multiple classes of cars and karts and those type of things. What was your favorite out of all the stuff that you've raced? What was your favorite kind of car to drive or kart? It could be the open cars, it could be the mini mod, it could be the E mod, it could be the sport mod.
Definitely has to be an outlaw kart with a 4-stroke 450. Or no, actually, no. The nothing beats the power band of a 2-stroke 500. When you get on a power band on a gripped up track and both wheels come off the ground and you're just hoping you're going in a straight line, that is nothing to compare to.
So those karts are so fast, I assume when you get to the corner, you're just going to figure out how to turn it from there? Or
you got to figure out how to turn it and keep the RPMs up, because you let the RPMs, if you have a 2-stroke, you let them RPMs come down, you're going to bog, so you got to stay on the wheel to those things.
So looking at the notes that we made and looking at the notes that you sent, I see nothing on here that has fenders.
Fenders. No, I'm an open wheel kind of guy.
But we have something with fenders.
Yes, I do have a project in the books right now that I have all the parts to it. I just haven't made time to put it together, but I've got some odd ends I needed to tie up, and I have a factory stock that has 2 seats in it.
And 2 fenders.
Yeah, 2 fenders, 4 fenders, actually.
Well, we're only worried about the front ones.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen you drive anything with front fenders on it.
No. So, I don't think I have drove anything with fenders.
I don't know that you have either. I think
other than a go-kart.
Did you not hot lap one of Skip's Modifieds one time?
Yeah, I hot lap Skip's Modified, and that's probably the most craziest thing I've ever driven.
Well, I think the Modifieds are out of control myself. But So tell us a little bit tell us about your adventure in Skip's Modified, but tell us a little bit about your factory stock that you got cooking over there.
Yeah, I got a factory stock I bought off of it was TJ Sullivan about 2 years ago, and I've slowly been doing stuff, to it. Like I've already got it stripped down. I put a new firewall in it.
Is it pink?
No, it's not pink. It's red. I changed the colors to red.
Did you clear that with the family? Like everybody was good with it?
No, my mom and my sister were livid about it. They wanted pink, and I was like, maybe.
When's the last time you seen it? They might have already painted it pink.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to go check on it. But yeah, it shouldn't be too much longer until that thing's on the track. I've gotten the firewall, the motor's put in it. All it really needs right now is for me to finish up the wiring and put a body on it.
So are you thinking you're going to get that out this year, project next year? What are we doing?
It'll be out by the end of this year.
Yes. Mostly big shows, regular Saturday night stuff. What are your thoughts on that deal?
Anytime I have time to race it. Big shows.
So your dad's going to have to get a bigger trailer, sounds like, or another trailer.
Another trailer.
Maybe Mr. Pidway's got a big trailer. Does he got a big trailer you can put them all in? It's 3 cars now. He
has a trailer, but I'm sure he has a spare trailer we can use.
All right. So obviously we talked about the factory stock. What are your future plans? What are your future goals in racing or hell in life? I mean, obviously you're working on the factory stock, so that's coming. But what kind of comes after that or with that?
I really want my future goals is to just get more consistent finishes in the sport mod and just learn a lot more. There's so much I still got left to learn, but I just really want to get consistent in that sport mod and really be a contender to win at those big shows.
What do you think it's going to take to be more consistent in that car?
Just knowing what to do or trying to read the track. I'm still trying to learn how to read tracks and what the changes I need to make to the car. I've really been struggling with setting up the car too loose or not tightening it up enough or given the track conditions or just thinking there's going to be a little moisture when there ain't. But
well, you're definitely in the right place over there at Ace Transmission because I'm sure as much havoc as Lawrence may give you and wreak upon you, he also gives you advice and helps you learn. So you were definitely in the right house over there to understand and learn some of that stuff. So that's pretty cool. We're going to learn some more in the sport mod. We're going to run the factory stocks, and then hopefully Skip buys a late model, and you can get your way into that deal. Is that the
I've always wanted to race a sprint car. Hopefully he buys a sprint car.
This is your time to tell him right here, right now.
Skip, can we get a sprint car?
We'll work on that. Maybe easier said than done. Do you have anything that you want to talk about? Any sponsors, any other stories you want to say? Anything else that you want the folks to hear or know? Yeah,
I just got to thank my sponsors. And some of these people, they're not current sponsors, but I just want to thank everybody that's helped me out.
Anybody that has helped you over the years or still a sponsor to this day?
Yes, sir. I want to thank Adan Arambila, Bill and Mary at CD Electric, Andy Van Blarkum, Darren Leonard, Mr. and Mrs. Larry Butcher, R&M Installs Rick Polero, Tom Hamilton at Mission Auto Parts, Chris Anderson with Dealer Electric, Shawnee and Eric Pacheco at Top Notch Tumble, Anna's House, Armor All Express Detail, Cruise Compressions, Welding House, Big Dog Racing, Team Pacheco, Ace Transmissions, Mab Motorsports, Greg Carlucci, Edmonds Plumbing, James Parks, Top Hat Design, and Chris Dudley.
Awesome deal, man. Gilbert, it was great to have you on the show. I know you were a little nervous in the beginning, but I think it went quite well.
Yeah, I think as it went on, it got a little smoother and kind of just came as is.
Cool deal.
We're having a conversation.
Well, thank you for coming on. Man, like I said, you and your family, you guys have a presence at the track. Your dad is always there by your side. Your sister's there. And we always know your mom's at when you're running up front because she's screaming and hollering.
If you don't see her, you're definitely...
Oh, yeah. And it was good to have you on the show. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you for having me.
As the checkered flag flies in this episode, I'd like to thank Gilbert Perez III for taking his time to come on the show. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, 112 Bodies, Proline Fabrication, SNS Monuments, and of course, Top Hat Signs and Design.